Wisco Weekly pod listeners, thanks for tuning back in to Tuesday's episode. This is episode number 3 of season 2. And just a very quick thank you to everyone who has listened to episode 1 and 2, the Hunter Swift interview. I must say it's very humbling, and I'm very grateful to everyone that has tuned into this particular season. And it's just reassuring then on my end that the content and this podcast here, it looks like it's starting to do some good to everyone out there that has tuned in. In this particular episode, I came across an article from the Harvard Business Review by Rafi Mohammed. And academically, this would be called personalized pricing. But in the car business, this is just nothing more than getting a good deal. And, knowing the fact that the deal you're getting is better than what, your neighbor is getting, essentially. And I guess one of the things that came out of this particular episode that you'll soon hear is that sometimes it's not actually always the dealer's fault in creating the pain and the tensions throughout the buying cycle, as my co-host Kelly Cruz will eventually attest to. So that was kind of enlightening. So stay tuned. You're in for a good episode. This is a fairly quick one. This is the Wisco Weekly podcast. Chicken brown cow. Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Wisco Weekly podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wisco, with my co-host here, Kelly Cruz. We have a episode here today that we're going to be talking about personalized pricing, a topic that is not so new to the industry here. But Kelly, what's good?
Hello, listeners. How's everyone doing?
We're doing good. Thanks for asking.
Felt right to start out with a question.
Okay, so personalized pricing. There's an article in the Harvard Business Review by a gentleman named Rafi Mohammed. He's a price strategy consultant and an author of the 1% Windfall, How Successful Companies Use Price to Profit and Grow. He wrote an article that essentially argues that there is personalization that happens with businesses where they are targeting you with certain prices. So, for instance, if I'm on my mobile device and I'm looking at, let's say, Travelocity, and I'm looking at, a hotel fare, if I go onto my desktop and I'm on Travelocity looking at the same hotel, there could be different pricing that can be communicated to me. And furthermore, if Kelly is on her desktop and looking at Travelocity on we're looking at the same hotel, she may have different pricing than I may have it. Kelly, knowing the fact that, and this is statistical, I'll probably have to look this up, but women tend to pay more for services than men. I know you're very price conscious.
Absolutely.
Are you okay knowing the fact that you have these companies with big data that are essentially serving you prices that are slightly more than men?
This presumes that I pay slightly more prices than men.
Well,
and
true.
I would say two things. One, I've learned from my husband to be a little bit more thrifty about shopping for good prices. And number two, I am adamant about getting the best price possible.
Yeah, and so the best price possible, at the end of the day, it that takes some homework to do, right? Like, again, let's not even talk about cars just yet. If I know that, for instance, when I went golfing one time, I was on, it was like I was just searching on these websites. I saw some open times, I saw a price, and I was like, okay, that's a good price. Actually, let me just call because I was driving at the time. So then all of a sudden I call in and I told the golf course, I said, hey, I saw your online price of whatever it was, like $85 for such and such day. Is there still availability, and are you still offering that price? And actually, what ended up happening is the guy was like, no, we actually have a lower price. I could give it to you for something lower. which I thought that was actually interesting because usually it's the online price that's going to be lower. And that's definitely something that in this article that Rafi talks about is this whole idea of this demand curve, in that the reason why there's personalized pricing is that there are people that will pay more for a product, and there's others that will pay less. And at the end of the day, the companies still get to benefit because they're still making money. Kelly, for the when it comes down to cars, then, what's interesting is in this article, it starts to mention how they actually they use the analogy of how car salesmen start to learn the buyer. Mm-hmm. So as opposed to when you're shopping online, your websites look, tracking your cookies, tracking your IP address and all that, and associating with a particular person. Again, are you? What are your thoughts then when it comes to the fact that you have a salesperson that's starting to learn more about you? Is that favorable to you? Is it creepy?
I guess it depends on kind of the process and the salesperson. I think this kind of comes down to the whole idea of the internet pricing versus walking in the door pricing. And I think absolutely if you walk in the door and someone saw me, like I think I, knock on wood for now, look younger than I am. And so most salesmen would probably say, I can take advantage of someone who's female, who's younger, probably doesn't know much about cars. But I think the more that we start getting into conversation, and if they ask questions around income, I always just, I don't like to give out that information anyway. But I think like in my last car buying process, when I mentioned at some point that I was an attorney, like the whole conversation changed the tone of the conversation. He's like, "Oh, if I had known before you were an attorney," and it's like, "Well, what does that mean?" Like all of a sudden, you
Well,
can't.
see, that's kind of it right there. It's like your initial reaction, as you can hear from your tone, it's like, "What does that mean?" But here again, when it comes to online data, it's again, while you might not be, talking about that the fact that you're an attorney, right? But you're perusing sites in which. It's one thing, if you're, again, you're going to be booking a trip to Palm Springs and you're looking at Hyatt's and Marriott's. Well, these companies are already getting that data, knowing the fact that, okay, well, she's not staying at the Hojo.
Right. Like it just be by the searching, you're saying.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is the thought that they're accessing other data that you're searching on other websites, or like able to access personal data?
Well, in terms of the technology that's being deployed here, yeah, it's your cookies that are being tracked, and then along with your IP address, and then again knowing the fact that okay, your IP address is in Aliso Viejo, okay, that's a higher income community, blah 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 blah, right? But you're more than willing to then all of a sudden, go on a Travelocity site, you see a Hyatt price, and you're okay paying that. And again, knowing the fact that I may go to that same Travelocity website, look at a Hyatt, and you're seeing $300 a night, I'm seeing $265, and again, you in comparison to what you might see on Hyatt.com. Where it's $350 a night, $300 a night, you might be like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So this is kind of similar, like when a car salesman is like, oh, you're an attorney, I didn't know that. And now you're a bit more defensive when a car salesman does know that about you. Why?
I think it's I don't know if it's so much defensive as opposed to like, I'm almost offended that he would have started down a different process or given me a different price because he thinks I must not be all that intelligent or, know information about cars. But it's funny. I feel like it would change my whole internet search process. Like, whereas right now you might go on 3 or 4 different websites to check pricing. Now I'm actually going to have to call Dennis and figure out how much the price you got and have you book my hotel for me. So.
Explain that a little bit more. I don't know if I follow
meaning
that.
Like when we're talking about that 2 people may get different pricing based on your background or the type of searches that you do. So it was just more joking that besides just checking different sites, you'd almost start calling up your friends to figure out if this is proven or if this is what's happening. Start calling your friends to figure out if they're going to get better pricing if they do the search.
Well, and I think this is really then what starts to hopefully paint the picture that at the end of the day, if you're shopping for a car or you're shopping for hotels or makeup or whatever the case, it is in the shopper's best interest to do exactly that and shop for the best price, right? And so,
Right.
one of the things that after reading this article, one of the things that I thought about then was the fact that there's so many. Most people never enjoy the car buying and shopping process, okay, for a variety of reasons. But one of which is the fact that it's like there's no transparency in the process. Well, again, but when you take a look at what some of these other companies, Orbitz, Travelocity, Expedia, what they're doing, they're kind of deploying a technological solution to what the car salesman is already doing, but yet the car buying process is more painful. So I don't know. I guess I'm on the other side of the spectrum because I'm familiar with buying cars. It's not a pain. I mean, there are certain elements that are painful. I think the big thing is just the time element, right? I think that's the commodity that can never be traded, and yet that's what car salesmen are always asking for, right? Like you submit an internet lead, you call in, they want you to come in. If you were to see prices on the website of a dealership and you see that the price is discounted, does that provide any kind of comfort or convenience for someone like yourself?
Because of the history of the car buying business and always knowing that there's room for negotiation, it's hard to know where that bottom line is or if that's actually the best deal. I think that I rarely have buyer's remorse about, an online hotel deal or travel deal because you've searched around and it seems that there's a kind of a finite amount of places that you check. Once you know what type of, let's say, hotel you're looking for, and you've checked 4 websites and the hotel website directly, you feel pretty confident that unless just 3 months from now the price happened to go down before your trip, you're probably getting, a pretty good price. I think you walk into a car dealership and regardless of what you saw online, that, as we've talked about in other cases, it's like you could still walk out the door even if you got a great deal and still feel like, could I have gotten a lower price, because you just don't really know what that bottom line is.
But now, would that be more of a byproduct of, especially these days, of the customer? Because again, I like to be on the other side of the aisle here. There are dealerships, not all, okay, but let's just say you encounter the dealership that does disclose pricing online in such a way that it's like, okay, hey, this is, and let's talk specifically about new cars, because there is room for negotiation on new cars, most new cars. Used cars, there's businesses, dealerships out there that are employing the whole CarMax model, so you can't even negotiate, right? So let's say with the new cars, you see on a dealership website that they are starting to say, hey, MSRP is, I don't know, $40,000. This is, there's a $1,500 rebate, and we're also offering a $2,000 discount, so you're getting $3,500 off. So here's the price. Now, if you're comfortable on Orbitz, on Travelocity, and as you've shopped that around, and you see that that's a good deal, you see that price on a dealership website. Is that a good deal to you?
I think the industry would have to start going a different direction.
Not industry, you.
Well, maybe,
you.
right.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so I see your point. I guess it depends how the consumer feels. And just like anything else, part of it is demand, and the demand that I need something now. And so I'm willing to pay more if I want something now. I'm willing to pay more if there's limited, quantities of that item available. But if I'm just going to buy a car that I know there's, hundreds of them out there, like I said, I feel right now, maybe it's me, maybe it's, part of the process of just not knowing that bottom line. But if the thought across the board was that whatever you saw online was the best deal that you were going to, really get in terms of the total price, and maybe you can negotiate other things, then maybe I would feel, less like I was getting a bad deal. But buyer's remorse is a strong word, because like I love my last car, I don't regret that I bought it. It's just more wondering if you could have inched a little bit more out, more miles, into the deal or something like that. But.
Well, I certainly think that this is interesting times because on one hand, the automotive industry is shifting very quickly. Not of a period of 2 years, 3 years. I mean, we're talking yearly now. The industry is shifting. And so, with models out there such as CarMax, and there's many other services out there that are Kelley Blue Book, TrueCar, that are starting to not only be transparent about the process, but they're also kind of setting up what the expectations are. And I think that's the one thing that customers, shoppers, buyers. I think that's the area that there's still a little bit of a struggle with, because who's supposed to manage the customer expectations? The answer would be the customer. But as you were kind of mentioning, it's like the history of the car business has been in such a way that it's been very shady and distrustful. But it's like, well, but there's been significant advances now, right? We're the kids of our parents, in which we're growing up when we know invoice price of these vehicles now, but yet there's still this mentality of, oh, that price that I see online, even though it's discounted, I know there's a better deal.
Get a better deal, exactly. And then at the same time, I can complain about the how tough it is to go in and buy a car, and you don't know where it's going to stop and how good of a deal you're going to get. It actually feels good to be able to go in and bargain. I think it would actually be less fun if you just knew the price, because then, other than knowing.
See, what's funny about that too is that on the flip side of it, I think this is where there's a new set of salespeople coming into the business that hate negotiating, but there's still there's customers at the end of the day, they would say they hate negotiating, but again, it's like at the end of the day,
it's part of the fun.
It's part of the fun. It's part of the fun. So I'm totally with you on that. That's actually pretty good. Hey, just a quick digression here. I'm gonna introduce a new segment here to the podcast. So for the listeners out there, myself and Kelley too, we're both big wine drinkers. So we're gonna introduce a new segment where we're gonna open up a bottle. We're gonna quickly discuss it, and go ahead, check it out if you'd like. But so this segment here is called "You Enophile You."
You enophile you.
If you don't know what enophile means, Google it. But we do have, let's see, Kelley, can you pass me that?
Absolutely.
All right, so we have an Italian bottle of wine from Toscana. It's called Poggio al Tuffo.
Spell it for the listeners.
Poggio, second word AL, third word TUFO. It's a blend of Sangiovese and Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a 2014. Kelley and I are going to try it. And look, let me be real here with you. We are by no means enophiles. We're amateur at best. But we're going to try to communicate exactly how this tastes to you. And again, we're going to taste this for the first time. We're going to see if it's what it is. So Kelley, you ready?
I'm ready. Got a little bit of a stuffy nose, so I don't know if the taste buds are going to be all there tonight. But
that's like chewing gum right before you taste it. Okay, here. So let's pour a little bit. Okay, there's mine. Let me pour yours. All right, so we got to do the whole swirl thing and all this good stuff here. And again, if you're an enophile yourself, or you're a experienced wine drinker, please chime in, give us some advice here. But so the color on this here, what do you think of the color here?
It's fairly dark, but it's when you tilt it, you can see through it a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of tapers out a little bit. I call this medium body.
When you swirl, you look for legs, right?
That's right, the legs. How the wine sits on the glass, and when it then kind of falls down to the center of it.
Not a lot of legs.
Let's take a smell. So one thing I know about Sangiovese grape is it's a very acidic wine, and it's fairly sensitive in that it's slow to ripen. So a lot of times these grapes kind of taste a little bit sour, so then you kind of have to blend it with something else with a cab, and I do enjoy a cab. So, all right, let's taste this, Cal.
You're supposed to do that, right?
Yeah, I know you are.
Sideways or something. It's got a lot of flavor.
A little chalky, a little sour. It's
You
like
get a little, not bitter, but like a smoky finish.
there's a little bit of wood and oak in there, but to me it's veggie. Is that a way to describe a wine?
I think so, although I'm not getting the vegginess.
You're not getting the vegginess? All right, let's try one more.
Okay. I won't slurp it this time.
It's
It has a lot of flavor initially right when you put it in your mouth, and then the flavor dissipates very quickly.
I was actually going to say it's almost consistent all the way through.
Wow. See, it's the taste buds.
Whoa.
Got so excited about the wine.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely the taste buds, because I would say that the way it enters is it does have kind of this again, like I'm coming back to sour. So it kind of enters in my mouth a bit sour, and then it stays consistent fairly all the way through. It's definitely not a long finish.
So it lingers for you? Doesn't linger?
It doesn't linger.
Okay.
It's kind of like just a kind of a shot, goes in, goes out, and then that's about it.
That's where I was going. So maybe we're just explaining it differently.
Well,
it's a good different perspective.
That's Kelly and I being enophiles, and this is our segment called You Enophile You.
You enophile you.
All right, so back to personalization of pricing here. Just a few more points, or a couple more points I want to highlight on this. So to read from this article, a study by ProPublica found that the Princeton Review strategy of levying different prices based on zip code resulted in Asians being twice as likely to be charged a higher price. In a similar vein, a classic economic study on car negotiation found that the markup on final prices for black women was triple the prices offered to white men. So, this personalized pricing has been going around then for some time. And it's certainly being shined a light on now, more so with technology, in the fact that a lot of companies are using data to understand their customers a bit better. I think one of the things, Kelly, for something like this, I certainly would want you to know that the manner in which dealerships are offering prices is they're not out to rip off the customer, right? And again, I think it's pretty obvious now with a lot of the information that's out there that you can very well see what the MSRP is, what the invoice is, what a fair price is. Now, if anything, I think what the real struggle becomes is the fact that when you start to see these, oh, this is what a good price is on that car, and then you call in or you submit a lead and you can't get that price, I think that's where all of a sudden the pain process comes in buying a car. Would you agree?
Yeah, although I don't know that I've ever really found that you just can't get it, other than I feel like they come out with a special that may be on a very specific, VIN number, color, and so if that's not left on the lot. But I don't know that I've ever gone to a dealership, said that I saw some special, and then it was unattainable.
Mm-hmm. I lost my train of thought there about what you had just said right there. What were you talking about now?
Just when you're seeing a special online and that it applies to a particular car.
Yeah. So one of the things I was going to ask you was then, so like when you see let's say actually now when you're talking to a salesperson, mm-hmm. and presuming to that you're looking at a car, you're not you see what the MSRP is. You see also that okay, hey, I can see on TrueCar, I can see on Edmunds, I could see market pricing, blah, blah, blah. Again, let's use the example, $40,000. I see this car is $37,000. Mm-hmm. And salesman says, okay, Kelly, I can offer you this car for $37,000. So first offer, take it or leave it.
I never take the first offer.
Never take the first offer. Negotiating 101, right?
Absolutely.
Anyhow, so... any further thoughts on this, Kel?
I did have a thought. The whole idea of dealers are not out to rip you off. I do completely agree with that because like you said, it's pretty transparent. I think it's just about whether you're getting a better deal or not But I don't, other than feeling like, are you getting the best deal? I don't necessarily feel like it'd be pretty hard, like you said, for them to rip you off unless they were charging a premium on a certain car because it's, low inventory or something. But it's pretty transparent what
It's very transparent, and what I found is that at the end of the day, as much as customers want this transparent and universal price, almost to your point, Cal, it's like there's secretly that hidden kind of negotiation that the customer wants to feel like they're winning, or that they want to win, and so. This is where sometimes it's almost laughable to me when dealerships are starting to employ a model of, again, it's specifically for new cars, where they're not willing to negotiate anymore. Lexus actually introduced a program. I don't even know if they still have it, but Lexus introduced a program. They called it the One Experience, where it was one salesperson, one price, and I know that at one of the stores I used to talk to often, South County Mission Viejo, or South County Lexus in Mission Viejo, they had that program. It went away because, again, I think the idea of having this one experience, this price that you can't negotiate on, for as much as they think the customers want it, the customers really don't. They still want, if anything, again, the big thing is they still want to feel like they've won. But this also then, on the other side of the aisle, this does kind of create the process of where it's not going to always be as smooth, and there still is going to be a little bit of pain in the buying process.
Right. On this 1-for-1, are you saying that you were paying almost a little bit more than maybe you would have otherwise because you weren't having to negotiate and having to go through multiple salespeople?
I don't know. Well, I believe the way that it just worked out was that it was, they basically took whatever was market pricing at the time.
Took some amount off. So that, in such a way that they were already competitive. Yeah.
Now, again, it was like if you went to Mission South County Lexus, you could get let's say a $3,000 discount, but you very well could go to Newport and get a $3,500 discount. So then it was like, is $500 worth it? And I think that's always the A/B test that dealerships will always go through and customers will always go through. Is it worth? I have a great price from one dealer, and I know I have a great price because you've shopped it around. But there is the dealer in LA that has given me $500 more, and $500 at the end of the day, that's a lot of money. But then, is it worth the drive? Is it worth?
Exactly. I'm a big fan of time as money, I guess maybe because I work in a field where you bill hourly. And so, I think about that in terms of workable hours. And so I think exactly what you do, the benefits around saving time. And is it worth, the paying the extra amount for kind of this concierge service because you're saving yourself time? And I would think, most people would see the benefit and it depends on how much it is. But if there's a big enough gap, if it's a few $1,000s, you do a lot for a few $1,000s maybe.
Oh yeah.
But
definitely.
For $500, again, it feels good to get a good deal, but I'm not willing to drive an extra hour and a half in traffic to get it either.
So, so with regards to this article, you can find this, through Google. Again, it's by Rafi Mohammed, How Retailers Use Personalized Prices to Test What You're Willing to Pay. And they specifically use the analogy of a car salesman and how he or she sources out information, characteristics from the buyer to essentially come up with a personalized price. At the end of the day, I think one of the bigger points that's made here is, and to kind of quote from the article, this fundamental concept of personalized pricing, this fundamental concept illustrates that for most products, some customers are willing to pay more than others. And so for the listeners out there, I think, it's just important for you guys to know and understand that as you would shop for a hotel, an airline, and even a car, the most savvy and smart way to go about it is to simply shop around. And by shopping around, you will then see, what is a good price and what isn't. And it shouldn't, even though you've maybe trained yourself psychologically to think that, oh, well, this price that now I've shopped around, it's still not that good. I need to get something better. I don't have a solution actually for that of why it is that, again, even if there's, customers are looking to still negotiate, I still understand what it is about customers that even though they've shopped around, they see a price that there's still this idea that it's not as good.
I will say on the flip side of that there's now, and maybe it's part of the marketing, this idea that if you wait too long, you may just lose out on the deal altogether. So we were working on booking a trip to Hawaii, and we're searching on Airbnb, which we've never used before. And we got the price that we wanted, found the place that we liked, and we were kind of debating over it. And then all of a sudden it flashed up that, there's 4 people looking at the same deal for the same dates. And I've seen this on other websites too. Mm-hmm. We couldn't type in our credit card information fast enough. And at that moment, it wasn't so much about, is that the best deal? It was like, because we were already happy with the place, that even if maybe it was a little bit more than we wanted to spend, well, now other people want it and you want it too. Right. So I feel like that's like another technique these days on the websites.
Certainly, yeah. If all of a sudden it's like you're, along those lines, it's always hard to communicate that, because I certainly can recall times where I was talking with a customer on the phone and they were interested in a particular car, and I knew there was a customer. Let's say I was talking with customer A on Tuesday, but I knew on Thursday, after meeting with customer B over the weekend, that customer was going to come in Thursday to buy that car. But until customer B comes in to buy that car's still available, right? But you try to tell customer A, hey, look, customer A, I know you're interested in this car, and I know you're going to think that this is a sales tactic, but there's somebody that's going to buy that car on Thursday, so I think you should jump on this. There's no easy way for any salesperson to communicate that as genuinely as possible, because certainly it does happen like that too, where customer B comes and buys it, and customer A is like, oh, you should have told me. It's like, yeah, well.
You're right. And it goes back to, I guess, if you've created a relationship with your dealer and you trust them, then you may believe them, versus someone you've never worked with before. Then you'd be more inclined to think that was a sales tactic.
Amen to that. That's actually some parting words right there for everybody. It's the relationship. That's what matters most. But we can go into that on another episode. So that is it for this episode of Wisco Weekly, personalized pricing, as well as our new segment of You in a File You.
You in a File You.
Tune back in for this Thursday's episode. We actually have a good one for this Thursday, talking about Asian American females. Of course, rate, review, subscribe. Check us out on Facebook. For Kelly Cruz, I'm Dennis Wisco. Check you out next time. Thanks for tuning in.